Fans, we are live and in living color in Sports Chat. Several things to talk about this week, but starting off on a real positive note, how about them Lady Cougars?
They've got it rolling again.
High atop the district standing at 3-0 after beating Oak Ridge at Oak Ridge.
They had a good week, played 3 games in a week, beat Cumberland Gap, and just a brutally officiated game. Which we'll get to the boys' game in a minute, which was even more brutally officiated. Where it's just, I think the Coach Brown said the Cumberland Gap Lady Panthers shot 44 free throws in the game.
To Campbell County's 10.
Campbell County came home, big district game against Powell on Tuesday night.
Oh yeah. If you wanted to see a defensive display of power, that third quarter especially, when they held Powell to 4 points.
Yeah, beat Powell 37-30. Courtney Morris scored 20 points in, making her outside shots, driving to the basket at will, getting her teammates involved. Played just that Cumberland Gap and Powell game. She played exceptional defense. I've not saw a defensive display like that in quite a while. I mean, she just shut Powell's point guard dead, and Cumberland Gap's as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Forced turnovers.
And I'll tell you what, we didn't go to Oak Ridge after football season. They left kind of a sour taste in our mouth. But reading about and talking to some people at the game, talk about an offensive display as well as defense. Campbell County in the last 2.5 quarters of the game or so outscored Oak Ridge 44-22.
They got the win 57-50, turned it up, turned on the defense after being down early. Pulled out a huge win. I mean, Oak Ridge is usually favored to win that district every year on the girls' side.
Right. In fact, last year they won it regular season, and then Hardin Valley turned around and won the tournament.
The tournaments are more of a anything can happen kind of situation over a given couple of games. But, if you win your district in the regular season, that's a big thing because you've played everybody twice.
Yeah, and you've played everybody twice. You've got the top seed of the tournament, and it is almost impossible not to advance to the regions as the top seed because of the byes.
So they've taken the big steps, beating 2 of their 3 biggest competitors in the district in Powell and Oak Ridge. The other will be Hardin Valley, obviously.
But they play at Hardin Valley Tuesday, apparently. In a game that's actually not on the schedule I have.
But the girls are really turning up the pressure defensively, and it's converting on the offensive side of things.
Now, Friday night, they play at home, be the last in-town basketball game before January. They're going to play Central, who also beat Oak Ridge this year.
Central's a really good squad usually, too. I remember back in the 90s, they had some powerful squads.
So that'll be a game to watch. I'd love to see everybody at the gym for that.
The boys' side of things, it got off to a rough start this week and got worse as the week wore on.
During the Cumberland Gap game, 90% of the time I'm not a person to blame officials for a loss. Usually if you play your game and you execute, you can overcome bad officiating. But what happened Monday night with the 5-second call was atrocious. And John, I'm going to let you explain that one.
Well, of course, there's two different 5-second calls in basketball. One applies to throwing the ball in, so that has nothing to do with this situation. The second 5-second rule is if you're an offensive player and you're holding the ball, you get 5 seconds to pass it or start dribbling. If you're already dribbling, you get 5 seconds to move towards the basket or pass the ball. Okay, that only applies though when the defender's within 3 feet of it. Now, we posted the video on our YouTube channel and on the Volunteer Times website.
It would be listed under video highlights 2. The Cumberland Gap game is all in 2.
Campbell County's player, he's got the ball, he's out dribbling near half court, basically halfway between half court and the top of the key. Cumberland Gap player's laying off him on the defense, so the referee has not started the 5-second count yet. Well, he edges up to him close enough to start the 5-second count. At 3 seconds into the count, Campbell County's point guard, I can't remember who it was right now, that ball out.
Probably Ethan Simpson.
It may be Simpson. I'm not sure.
It was either Simpson or Torres.
I think it may have been Torres. That's when he had brown hair.
It was Torres.
Regardless, he looks over at the ref when the ref gets the 3 on the 5-second count, and he starts toward the basket and moves about 10 feet towards the basket. Loses the ball, and the ball is bouncing free. He goes and recovers the ball, and as soon as he recovers the ball, the official, who never broke the count when he started moving toward the basket, blows the whistle and calls 5 seconds. And I'm sorry, that's simply the wrong call. The rule was not applied properly. That gave Cumberland Gap the ball with about 25 seconds to go. They come down, and there's just a terrible, especially for the situation, a terrible game-deciding foul is called on Campbell County when there really was at best marginal or minor contact. It's rarely ever you're going to see that call made in under a minute to go. I don't think that there was a foul at all. Cumberland Gap gets to shoot a free throw for the win, and then since Campbell County had so many fouls called on them that Cumberland Gap shooting free throws, Cumberland Gap had hardly any fouls called in the second half. They were able to foul Campbell County every few seconds without sending Campbell County to the line, which made Campbell County have to keep resetting their play.
At that point in the game, Cumberland Gap had 4 fouls called on them. Campbell County had over 10 because they never counted past 10.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same way on the girls' side. You got late in the fourth quarter, Cumberland Gap girls had been shooting the automatic two free throws for having 10 fouls.
Since about the middle of the third quarter.
The middle of the third quarter, all the way through the second half, and Campbell County's girls never got to where they shot the automatic to.
Amber Young, she barely got to see the game. She got fouled every time she moved towards the ball.
She got called for 5 fouls in about 5 minutes of gameplay. They had a couple other people before, and it was ridiculously officiated.
Look, you know it's poorly officiated when Emily Burge gets a technical. That's all I'm saying.
One of the sweetest people you'll ever meet. Apparently got teed up for trash talking or saying something that the ref felt was inappropriate. She was really sort of taken aback by that.
Yeah. Now,
I think her sister Jessica probably taught her.
Oh, I have no doubt it's Jessica's fault because there's no way Jamie or Hannah would have taught her that. Against Powell, the boys had they had a pretty good game. It's just towards the end Powell kind of took command in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, Campbell County may have been a little tired from playing the night before, but you can't prop yourself up with that one. You just got to play better late in the games. And Coach House will get them playing better late in the games.
And then, of course, they lost to Oak Ridge, but I'll tell you, Oak Ridge, his team, had really just got to the point where their football players that play basketball have reintegrated into the lineup. And that's a huge shot in the arm for a team like that.
Oak Ridge is one of the state championship level contending teams out of East Tennessee this year, I believe, on the boys' side. I mean, always loaded with just really exceptional athletes and good basketball players.
Of course, now, talked about what Campbell County is doing this week. Thursday is the biggest basketball event in county of 2011 when LaFollette travels to Jacksboro. It's gonna be a good game. Dotson and Parker coached together for 2 years, friends. Now they're looking at each other across the way. And even in the assistants realm, Trevor Nolan is coaching down at Jacksboro, and Garrett Reese is coaching at LaFollette, and those guys are longtime friends and teammates.
It's always a big in-county rivalry. A little bit more spice to it this year since Coach Parker left Coach Dotson's staff and took the Jacksboro job. So we'll see what they've got up their sleeves for each other.
Fans, you won't be disappointed at this game. I guarantee. I've never been to a Jacksboro LaFollette game that I didn't leave thinking, wow, if I'd have paid for that, I'd have felt like I got my money's worth.
There's always a little extra effort put forth, both when they play football and basketball. Usually LaFollette is more successful of the two in basketball than Jacksboro in football. But you can just about throw the records out when they play because the game can be closer than you ever figured it probably should be.
Right. I mean, Luke, you were a manager for Coach Turnblazer.
Right.
During some of those games. I mean, even as a manager, you can just feel the tension.
There's always a lot of tension.
I would say I was a manager under Knife because I don't know how to dribble.
There's always a lot of tension going into the LaFollette Jacksboro game. As we said, no matter what they're playing, basketball, football, I'm sure even when they, track meets and stuff, there's a lot of tension. It's a classic rivalry, and it has all the classic rivalry feels. Normally they're great games.
Look at some of the football games just over the last couple of years since I've been announcing that you guys have been a part of between Jacksboro and LaFollette. Just that feel. It's different.
Yeah, pack the stadiums, pack the stands. We're all one big town. LaFollette, Jacksboro, Carroll really sort of blends into one big town.
It really does.
It's a friendly rivalry, but it is a rivalry, and across town, they would no excuses not to come to it, not to come to the Campbell County game Friday night. Last chance you're going to get to see the Cougars.
Right, because like I said, Friday, unless you want to go to some holiday tournaments, and if you're out and you're in Sevier County or for whatever reason you're in Lenore City, go check them out.
High school and middle school basketball is going reasonably well. UT basketball,
wow.
That was a disaster level loss for Conzo Martin. That's just like Derek Dooley's loss against Kentucky. You can shade. You can. It's a little different in basketball, but really, if you start having losses like that's the kind that's going to shave a year off your contract, basically.
Austin Peay is usually a good Ohio Valley Conference team. But it's the it's Tennessee Tech, EKU, Austin Peay, schools like that. It's not a great conference, and they were 1-9.
They've not played any conference games yet, I wouldn't think, but regardless, they're not a good basketball team. And Tennessee just made some dumb mistakes and quit playing hard deep. They were ahead by 11 points with 5 minutes to go. You should never lose a game in that situation.
Especially not when, in theory, your talent level is that much higher than your opponents.
The talent level is much higher, and especially you got a double-double out of Kenny Holland. I believe a double-double out of Jerome Maimon in the post. You should never.
Maimon played a good game.
It's ridiculous. I'm sorry people are saying that this team was way down, and it was down from what it was at Bruce Pearl's peak. But still, this team had more talent on it than just about any Tennessee roster I've saw over there before Pearl in a long time. We would have killed to have these kind of players on this team when Buzz Peterson was coaching.
I would have loved to see these players in the Don DeVoe years.
Later Don DeVoe, the talent got sparse. Wade Houston had his son in nothing. Kevin O'Neal had poor talent, but built it up a little towards the end. Jerry Green had pretty good talent. But this team is comparable to me in talent to some of Jerry Green's teams at 120 games. I'm sorry, there's about 8 4-star players or better on this team. And I can remember just under Buzz Peterson, I was extremely heavy at looks on 3-star players.
Yeah.
Chris Lofton was a 3-star player. I was very happy to get him. He was borderline top 150. He turned out to be better than that, but Pearl got a hold of him and coached him up. Martin, I know these aren't his players except for a couple of new freshmen this year, but gosh,
the talent's there. You got to work with it.
It's one thing to lose to Duke and Memphis away from home, but blowing an 11-point lead to lose to a 1-9 Austin Peay team was pretty off. And Martin may turn it around. He had a terrible first year at Missouri State, and I think they went 9-24 or something like that. And then the next 2 years, he won over 20 games and ended up winning his conference last year. So we'll just have to see. Right now, it came down to the player out of Memphis named Jarnell Stokes, who many say is going to be able to enroll in January and start playing immediately.
Oh, now that would be a big shot.
Because he's able to graduate high school. He's a great top 20 type player, and he's apparently deciding between Kentucky, possibly Memphis, Tennessee, and I think Florida. And they say he favors Tennessee over Florida. And in Kentucky and in Memphis' case, since he wants to enroll at midterm, they supposedly don't have a scholarship available right now in the midterm. So that would lead you to think that Tennessee was a clear-cut leader before they fired Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl pretty much had the kid. His brother goes to UT. His best friend is Cameron Clear, who is an offensive lineman on the football team. And they've been around the last few games. He's made really good friends with Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris, who just stayed in school during the NBA lockout. I wish he'd stayed in school and been on the place and won the draft. But while the NBA was locked out, Tobias just kept taking classes, and he became really good friends with Tobias Harris. So there's a lot of pluses in Tennessee's favor. Martin really needs this guy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this guy's a 5-star player, elite.
You know, I said some ill things yesterday on Twitter, but I want to see Conzo Martin do well.
I mean, I said it with Pearl when they hired him. I'll say it about Dooley. I want to see both of these coaches here in 10 years. Because if they're here in 10 years, it means they've been having a successful season. And that's all I care about. And Martin, he's taken a different approach. I think it's the wrong approach to take. Tennessee basketball is... Tennessee's such a football area, but it will have good basketball support if the coach will work a little bit.
Look what Pearl did.
I mean, our two most successful coaches off the court, or on the court, pardon me, were extremely good promoters off the court. I mean, Ray Mears coined the term Big Orange Country, wore the orange blazer and the orange pants. Ray Mears started a lot of things we think of as tradition.
And though they are traditions, I mean, they actually don't go back that far compared to the nailing traditions.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mears started these in the early 60s, and he would have elaborate, people on unicycles, juggling knives, or whatever he had to do to get people to come to the games. And that bred up into a really passionate fan base. And Bruce Pearl, he got up, and they said he would jump up in the cafeteria and yell to the students, come to the game tonight. His great speech before Florida when he said we're going to kick their butts, but with a different word.
I mean, just look what he did with the Lady Vols game. Just shows up, chest painted,
Yeah, I mean,
all that. I mean, because even though the Lady Vols have a lot of discounted and free games, they have good fan support that comes to these games. So when somebody like Bruce Pearl comes in and does that, some of these people are thinking, well, let's go check out the boys' side.
I mean, the men's team, the attendance has went down by 10,000 people this year.
I talked on Twitter. I was talking Josh Parker, Matthew Chambers. They were at the game. They said there was maybe 10,000 people.
I mean, before Pearl ever coached a game, he was generating massive amounts of PR for the program. And Martin refuses to do that. Martin won't deal with the media. Martin won't deal with the fans. Martin won't do anything like that. That's just, I guess, the kind of person he is. And, I mean, you better be an exceptional coach, and you better win a lot of games if that's going to be your attitude towards the fans and the media around here.
Right, because
That's just the bottom line.
I mean, the media around here, and there's a lot of it now. You go to GoVolsExtra.com. I know you know the variety of message boards and all that.
I mean, that's been a sticking point for a lot of fans this year, is how closed down. I mean, Bruce Pearl opened up practices. Bruce Pearl, if you saw Bruce Pearl, as long as he wasn't coaching the game, he's all around, slap you on the back, start shaking your hand and thanking you for being a Tennessee volunteer.
You're absolutely right.
He had events. He had, with Camp Pearl a couple times a season where they'd show movies and stuff before games. He would stay up with the fans all night.
Show up when fans are camping out for tickets
Tennessee
and bring
basketball
pizza.
became an event again, like it did under Ray Mears. And I'm sorry, Martin, you may not like to do that, and it might not be part of the job at a lot of places, but it's part of the job at Tennessee, unfortunately. I mean, and unless you're winning at the highest level, you're going to not get the fan support if you're not friendly to the fans.
There was one high spot in college basketball yesterday, though.
Oh, like I said, I hate that Tennessee lost, but there are two good things that can happen on a day of basketball today. Tennessee can win a basketball game.
Which sadly didn't happen.
Kentucky can lose a basketball game.
Which did.
That was outstanding. There's nothing like watching the little blue go down in flames when they think they're going undefeated, because they were convinced they were going undefeated this year. And not that they're not every year, but they were exceptionally convinced they were going to go undefeated this year. And Tom Crean took Calipari to school. Calipari has got 8 of the projected top 15 or 20 draft picks on that team. His starting 5 are all projected to go in the top 10 of the NBA draft. He's basically running an NBA team and probably paying a little more than most NBA teams. But it's wonderful when they lose. And anytime the other team's got a good coach, there's a good chance, unless their just talent's awful, they're going to lose because Calipari's not a good coach.
And I like to see a school like Indiana win stuff like that.
The Indiana's one of their three big rivals. It's Indiana, Louisville, and Tennessee are their three big rivals. Hopefully Louisville cleans their clock out too. Because they just especially hate Rick Pitino because he left them for Boston. They couldn't see in their eyes that the Boston Celtics, the NBA, the most legendary basketball team of all time,
Was better than
they thought that was a move down from Kentucky and couldn't figure out why he would take a step down. And he was from Boston too, that area, so that it didn't make any sense to them that he would leave Kentucky and their beautiful horses.
They do have beautiful horses there, which I can't wait till we can actually buy and eat.
Yeah. Just watch the Kentucky Derby. If one goes down, you'll be having a big flank steak that night. Let that boil for 3 hours.
In other news, Robert Griffin III won the Heisman.
Yeah, apparently he got to play last, although Honey Badger also got to play on that same day and actually had a spectacular game. But I would say, honestly, that Trent Richardson's the best player of the group. Such a dominating running back, had one fumble his entire career, which was fortunately against Tennessee. And, you just don't see that come along out of a running back.
I don't, RG3, nothing against him. I'm sure he's a good player, but I really saw him as the least of the players in that.
He makes spectacular plays, but he plays in the Big 12.
There's a history with the Heisman of them not picking the necessarily best out of the group.
It became pretty much a worthless award when Peyton Manning did win it.
It was worthless before that. The Heisman order used to go, whoever the player from Notre Dame you could hype the most was most likely to win. But if he didn't win, it was whoever the player you could hype the most from Ohio State, or Michigan, or USC, or anybody but basically anybody but an SEC team. Especially Tennessee or Alabama. Alabama didn't have a Heisman Trophy winner until like the year before last with Keenan won it. And that's pretty amazing considering Alabama's just multiple national championships and just an array of college and NFL Hall of Fame players. I got Joe Namath and Kenny Stabler, Don Hudson. I hate Alabama as much as anybody ever should, but they've had some exceptional players who never got a sniff at the Heisman. And it was because the Heisman was political, and they always saw the South, as being lesser than the other regions of the country, so they wouldn't vote for players from the South.
Of course, I said kudos to RG3. Good for him. He seems like a good guy.
Oh, I'm sure he's a good player. It's just that he put up big numbers in the league where you see scores come out every week. It's 56-48. And Oklahoma State throws for 600 yards a game, and Oklahoma throws for 600 yards a game, and Baylor throws for 600 yards. Everybody in the league throws for 400, 500, 600 yards a game. It's not surprising he has big games in the league like that. Trent Richardson piled up 1,550 yards in the SEC against the best defenses you're going to face anywhere in this country.
Against defenses like LSU.
Yeah. He didn't fumble against LSU. He had over 100 yards rushing against LSU. Alabama marched the ball up and down the field on LSU. A lot of people are crying and crowing about Alabama playing in the BCS title game against LSU over Oklahoma State because it's a rematch. I think that I would probably split it. If I were an AP voter, I'd probably vote for LSU if LSU loses a close game. I've said if LSU losing a close game on a neutral side, that's a less impressive Alabama win than LSU going to Alabama and winning the game. Now, if Alabama blows them out, yeah, I would make Alabama the champion because I thought they outplayed LSU in that first game. LSU may blow. I don't know what's going to happen, but the SEC is going to bring the national title home again.
Yeah, that's already guaranteed. Now, in the world of the NFL, Titans managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory today.
Yeah. Dallas did the same thing last week. And I have a feeling that Jason Garrett's probably not long for the world.
Yeah, I kind of got that impression from the way Jimmy Johnson was talking today.
Jerry Jones has not been happy the last few weeks. And then, my God, they kicked the game-winning field goal, but in the middle of the process, he called timeout and iced his own kicker. The field goal that went in didn't count. And he missed the next field goal after he'd been iced, and they went to overtime and lost.
That's a dare-devil kind of move.
They play the Giants tonight at 8. If they win tonight, people are going to forget that happened to some extent. But if they come out and get beat by the Giants, their big division rival, I think the Giants are probably in first place in the division right now. Jerry Jones is not a patient man.
No.
He's old. He's got billions of dollars. So you've got to figure that he figured he's not got many more of these seasons left. And really, if you got billions of dollars, you can afford a few million for another coach.
In other NFL news, rumors swirled that Brett Favre may be taking the field for the Bears. I can't imagine that happening at this point, but
I mean, that's literally like us going out and digging up Saddam Hussein and making him president. I mean, he and the Bears are just arch enemies.
Oh, goodness.
I mean, you know, it's bad enough that he went to Minnesota because they're pretty big enemies.
they're almost as big a rival with the Packers
Chicago
as the Bears.
and the Packers are the biggest rivalry in that division and one of the biggest in the NFL.
Right. I mean, they are. I mean, that's just huge.
You know, God, Favre is, I'm sorry, he was pretty awful when he played last year.
Also, the NFL, Peyton Manning for MVP.
I saw that pointed out earlier this week on a show. It's like, well, hey, you clearly see who the most valuable player to their team was in the league. When you go from winning 10 or 11 games or whatever they won last year to losing probably all 16 this year unless something strange happens. Right. And that shows you how valuable one player can be to a team. I mean, it's usually not that way in football, but it's to the point that the Colts defense, they already fired the defensive coordinator and it's dead last in the league this year. And it had been pretty, middle of the pack the last few years. And the reason is Manning were able to keep opposing offenses off the field by being able to move the ball. I mean, they can't move the ball this year. That just gives the opposing offense more possessions and they're scoring every time.
Now, with the Colts probably going 0-16 and getting the number 1 draft pick, they're going to draft Luck.
I mean, there's a school of thought that says they would. That would be just the height of foolishness to me because they need a lot of help on that Colts team.
Do you think they trade down and try to get some defense?
Manning's probably got 3 or 4 more years to play at a high level. John Elway played till he was 38 or 39. Shoot, Favre playing at least 45. And people are saying, well, you can't risk this neck injury. Actually, from what I understand, the fusion surgery on his neck will actually make it stronger than it was before he had the surgery, once it gets done properly and rehab properly.
And Peyton Manning's a competitor.
But he doesn't get hit very much, and that's the big thing. That's why he's able to last so long without ever missing a game. But I think the Colts would be crazy not to trade that pick. They could probably trade the pick and move down 3 or 4 spots or 5. And probably end up getting 2 first-round picks out of it. Or 3 and some second round, and they could probably actually still draft Robert Griffin III. He's actually throws a better looking pass than Andrew Luck to me. I mean, he's not just a running quarterback. He actually throws a beautiful pass, and I think he would be a fine NFL quarterback, especially if he drums for a year or 2 under Manning.
And of course, the Colts quarterback coach, Jim Bob Cooter.
That's he'll coach him up.
I mean,
Jim Bob with the knee of Randy Sanders.
He did. Oh, fans, that's about it for this week. We'll see you next week on Sports Chat, and we hope to see y'all at the Jacksboro LaFollette game and at the Campbell County Central game.